This simple movement puts a ton of side bend through the spine, reaching its maximum right here. Hard bending, and also rotation, sometimes gets a bad rap when we think about movement, but they are completely natural motions of the body, with many areas designed specifically for it. This movement is what Jay here from Phase 6 calls a regression, a preparatory movement for the full lizard crawl, which we'll cover at a later time. At this ground contact position, we're generating a lot of bend because we have two major fixed points with the legs and arms. For the legs, the straight leg is in a lengthened or stretched position for the gluteus medius, minimus, tensor fasciae latae, and a bit on the IT band too. The bent leg side adds stability, the weight of it preventing you from falling backwards, and the planted foot preventing you from falling forward. And it also adds to the pelvis being up or higher on this side, the right side in this image. The straight arm side is holding relatively straight and uses its bony surfaces for support with muscles around contracting minimally or just enough to hold position. With these fixed points, the trunk is in between and the weight of it naturally pulls itself into a sag. You can see that it's short or concave on the high side, long or convex on the low side. This puts quite a bit of stretch into the long or lengthened tissues, which is perfectly safe when you have healthy tissues supporting you. I'm gonna say that the thorax is both swung and or pulled laterally towards the supporting arm in this position by the muscles. The arm is mainly attached to the rib cage and spine by muscles, the pec major and minor in the front, and the middle and lower parts of the trapezius, for instance, are lengthened as the pelvis drops. This means, on descent, they go taut and pull the thorax towards them. The weight of the lower part of the trunk pulls on the upper, so we also get some lengthening through the intercostals, obliques, QLs, and erector spinae of that side. These muscles will be going through varying degrees of contraction, but aside from that, just the general fascial integrity in the lateral region is more than enough to support the bend and weight that comes with it. Moving more centrally to the spine, as a general rule, the greatest degrees of motion tend to happen at transitional points in the anatomy of the skeleton. Or you could say, at the parts that are less encased by bone and therefore more free to move. The pelvis is a very sturdy structure, and even though the lumbar spine is the largest region of the true spine, it is mobile compared to the pelvis. Despite some misconception, the whole lumbar spine does have a little bit of side bend to it, usually 5 degrees overall, but more tends to occur at L5S1. The thoracic spine has a rib cage holding it at almost all points, with ribs from 1 to 9 and often 10, wedging between two vertebrae. So it doesn't have a ton of side bend overall, but more will happen at T12, 11, and sometimes T10. Because that's where the ribs are no longer attached to the sternum and no longer wedging between each vertebrae, allowing for freer motion of the spine. To prevent the whole thing from just sliding apart in this position, the spine has its own very deep, very small, and very strong joint, muscular, and ligamentous support system. Between each spinal facet joint on the back, we have a connective tissue capsule encasing it. The bodies of the vertebrae in front have their capsule-like annulus fibrosus. Between each TVP of the spine, we have an intertransverse ligament and muscle. Between each spinous process, we have an interspinous ligament and muscle. And just a little deeper to that, we have the ligamentum flavum. All of this makes it so that the spine cannot just move individual vertebrae, but also safely support positions at big ranges at high speed with some pretty decent muscular contraction, provided it's healthy, working right, and well trained, which is the exact reason for a preparatory movement like this.